Your future is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is something you create with the thoughts you think and the decisions you make. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you are shaping your destiny by the choices you commit to. A decision is more than a passing thought. It's a commitment to yourself, a line in the sand that says, from this moment forward, things will never be the same. Most people wait for external circumstances to align before they decide to move toward their dreams, but life doesn't work that way. Waiting for the perfect time is a trap, because there will never be a day when the sky is completely clear of obstacles. The truth is, your future changes the very moment you take ownership of it in your mind, before you see a single piece of evidence in your outer world. When you make a firm decision, you send a signal not only to yourself, but to the universe that you are ready for what you desire. This decision becomes the blueprint for your actions, your behavior, and ultimately your results. Think about how much time people waste drifting between options, doubting themselves, and seeking approval from others before they move forward. In that hesitation, opportunities pass, doors close, and momentum is lost. The successful ones, the ones who truly shape their own destiny, don't wait until everything is perfect. They decide, and then they act with faith that the rest will fall into place. It's not about having all the answers in advance. It's about having the courage to take the first step without seeing the entire staircase. A real decision is backed by belief. You don't need to know the exact how, yet you just need to decide what and why. Once that is locked in, the way forward begins to reveal itself in ways you couldn't have imagined before. When you firmly decide, something shifts inside you. You begin to think differently, speak differently, and see opportunities where before there were only obstacles. This is because your mind starts operating on a higher frequency, aligned with your chosen destination. You begin to filter out the noise that used to distract you, and instead, you focus like a laser on what you've committed to creating. Every challenge that comes your way no longer feels like a permanent block. It becomes a puzzle to solve on the path to your vision. That is the power of a decision. It transforms your perception, and in doing so, it transforms your future. Many people misunderstand what decision making really is. They think it's simply picking between two options, but that's not the depth of it. A true decision is not just choosing, it's cutting off all other possibilities. It's burning the boats so there's no turning back. When you do this, your mind has no choice but to find a way to make your chosen path work. Half decisions, on the other hand, keep you trapped in limbo. You tell yourself you're committed, but you still leave the back door open just in case. That kind of thinking will never create the future you want, because it allows fear and doubt to creep back in the moment things get hard. A full, unwavering decision is like locking yourself onto a trajectory and refusing to let go until you arrive. The mind is an extraordinary tool, but it takes direction. Without a clear decision, it drifts, jumping from one idea to the next without focus. But when you decide with absolute clarity, your mind organizes itself to work toward that outcome. You start noticing resources you didn't see before, meeting people who align with your goals, and stumbling upon information that accelerates your progress. It's not magic, it's the law of focus at work. What you focus on expands, and your decision tells your mind exactly where to place its focus. Look at history. and you'll see countless examples of people who changed their lives and the lives of others by making a single unwavering decision. They didn't start with perfect conditions or endless resources. They started with a choice. The moment they said, "I will," everything began to shift. This same power is available to you right now. The decision you make today can ripple through the weeks, months, and years ahead, altering the course of your life completely. But it must be made with conviction. It must be made with the full understanding that the road will test you, but your decision is stronger than the tests. Some people think they are being practical by waiting for more proof before they commit, but in reality, they are postponing their future. Proof comes after the decision, not before. If you need certainty before you take action, you'll never move. Life rewards the bold, the ones who decide and then adapt as they go. Even a wrong decision can be corrected, but indecision leaves you stuck in the same place year after year. You can adjust your course along the way, but you can't steer a parked car. Decision gets you moving, and once you are moving, you can pivot, refine, and grow into your vision. Your future is malleable. It is not fixed unless you allow it to be. The power to mold it lies in your ability to decide with firmness and to act on that decision regardless of temporary setbacks or opposition. You are always one decision away from a completely different life. That moment of clarity when you finally say enough, or this is the way forward, can shift not only your external world, but also your internal identity. You begin to see yourself not as a passive recipient of circumstances, but as an active creator of your reality. That identity fuels confidence, and confidence fuels action. And that action builds the future you once thought was out of reach. The first and most important step is to decide, truly decide, that your life will be what you choose it to be, and then to live every day in alignment with that choice. The word no is one of the most powerful teachers you will ever encounter, yet most people allow it to crush them instead of fuel them. Every time you hear no, you have a choice to see it as a stop sign or as a signal to reroute your path towards something even better. The truth is, no is rarely the end of the road. More often, it's a bend in the road, a redirection that forces you to grow, adapt, and strengthen your determination. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not the ones who never hear rejection. They are the ones who learn to use rejection as rocket fuel. They understand that no is not a verdict on their worth, but simply feedback, and feedback is information they can use. A rejection tells you this way may not work right now, but it never says you can't make it work at all. The problem is not the rejection. The problem is how you choose to interpret it. When you take no personally, you give away your power. You allow someone else's opinion, limitations, or timing to dictate the trajectory of your life. But when you take no as a challenge, something shifts inside you. Instead of backing down, you lean in. Instead of shrinking, you expand your effort, sharpen your skills, and increase your resilience. That transformation doesn't happen when everything goes smoothly. It happens when you hit walls and have to figure out how to climb over, go around, or break through them. In fact, the most resilient people often have the longest lists of rejections, because every no they've heard has been converted into a stronger yes within themselves. Rejection has a way of testing your commitment. When someone tells you no, it forces you to ask yourself, do I want this badly enough to keep going, even without their approval? Many people quit at the first sign of pushback, revealing that their desire was more of a wish than a true decision. Those who keep going prove not only to the world, but to themselves that their vision is non-negotiable. This inner proof is far more valuable than any immediate yes could ever be, because it builds a foundation of confidence that can't be shaken by one person's opinion. Every time you face no and keep moving forward, you strengthen the muscle of persistence, and that persistence will carry you to places that a quick and easy yes never could. It's important to remember that no is often temporary. Timing plays a massive role in success, and what's rejected today might be embraced tomorrow when circumstances shift. The door that closes today may swing open later, but only if you're still standing there ready to walk through it. Too many people turn around and leave after the first closed door, never realizing how close they were to a breakthrough. Sometimes the no you receive is not even about you. It's about the other person's limitations, fears, or priorities at that moment. They may not be ready for your idea, product, or vision yet, but that doesn't mean the world isn't. If you stop too soon, you rob yourself of the chance to prove them wrong. One of the greatest ways to reframe no is to see it as a filter rather than a final judgment. Every rejection removes an option that wasn't the right fit for you, narrowing your path toward the people, opportunities, and situations that are aligned with your goals. It's like panning for gold. You have to sift through a lot of dirt before you find the treasure. But the dirt isn't failure, it's part of the process. Each no removes what's not for you so you can get closer to what is. The mistake most people make is assuming the dirt means there's no gold. The truth is, the more no's you're willing to go through, the more likely you are to strike something truly valuable. Rejection also forces you to innovate. When you're told no enough times, you begin to think creatively, find new angles, and develop unique strategies to get where you want to go. It sharpens your resourcefulness because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. You stop relying on the same old methods and start exploring new ways to get results. Some of the world's most groundbreaking inventions, businesses, and movements were born because someone heard no so many times that they finally decided to create a completely different path. The pressure of rejection can either crush you or shape you into something stronger than you were before. But for this to happen, you must remove the emotional sting from no. This doesn't mean you ignore the disappointment. It's natural to feel it, but you refuse to let it settle into your identity. You see no as a data point, not a declaration of who you are. By keeping that emotional distance, you're able to analyze what happened, learn from it, and improve your approach without losing your confidence. Over time, you develop a mindset where no barely registers as a setback. It becomes just another step on the way to yes. That kind of mental toughness is what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. If you start to see every no as an investment in your future rather than a debt against your dreams, your entire relationship with rejection will change. You'll begin to seek out challenges, knowing that each one you overcome adds value to your journey. You'll stop dreading the possibility of hearing no, because you'll realize that the sooner you hear it, the sooner you can adjust, adapt, and move forward. Instead of avoiding situations where you might fail, you'll dive into them, understanding that each experience makes you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the inevitable yes. That will one day change everything. Negative feelings are not random forces that appear out of nowhere. They are created and sustained by the thoughts you choose to entertain. Your inner dialogue, The constant conversation happening in your mind is the foundation on which your emotional state is built. If the majority of that dialogue is filled with self-doubt, criticism, fear, and limitation, then negative emotions will dominate your experience. On the other hand, if you take control of those internal conversations, redirecting them toward possibilities, strengths, and solutions, you'll find that your feelings begin to shift almost automatically. Your mind is like fertile soil, and whatever you plant in it will grow. If you plant seeds of worry and failure, you will reap anxiety and discouragement. If you plant seeds of confidence and vision, you will harvest enthusiasm and hope. This is not wishful thinking. It's the way human psychology works. Your thoughts trigger chemical responses in your brain that create the sensations we call feelings. Change the thought, and over time, the feeling changes with it. Most people never stop to question the voice in their head. They assume it is simply telling them the truth about themselves and their life. But in reality, it's often just an outdated recording of past experiences, fears, and other people's opinions. If you don't consciously reprogram it, it will keep playing the same limiting messages, reinforcing negative feelings and keeping you stuck in the same patterns. The challenge is that these thoughts can be so habitual that you barely notice them. You might wake up already feeling heavy or discouraged without realizing that your first thoughts in the morning were about everything that could go wrong. That mental pattern becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The day feels hard because your mind started by telling you it would be. To master your inner dialogue, you have to become aware of it. Pay attention to the words and tone you use when speaking to yourself. Are you encouraging and supportive, or are you harsh and critical? Do you focus on solutions or problems? Do you tell yourself you can figure things out, or do you assume you'll fail before you even try? This self-awareness is the first step because you cannot change a conversation you're not even aware you're having. Once you begin to notice the negative patterns, you can interrupt them and replace them with new, empowering ones. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing thoughts that help you move forward instead of keeping you trapped. The shift doesn't happen overnight, but with consistency, your mind begins to adopt the new patterns as normal. For example, instead of automatically thinking, "I'm not good enough for this," you train yourself to think, "I can learn what I need to succeed here," instead of, "This is going to be a disaster." You replace it with, "I'll handle whatever comes." These small changes in wording create huge changes in how you feel and behave. Your brain takes your dominant thoughts as instructions, and when those instructions are focused on possibilities and growth, your emotions begin to align with that outlook. Another important aspect of mastering your inner dialogue is learning to speak to yourself with the same kindness and patience you would give a friend. Most people would never say to others the cruel things they say to themselves. They would never call a friend stupid, hopeless, or a failure just because they made a mistake. Yet they accept that kind of language internally without question. That internal hostility feeds negative feelings and keeps you in a constant state of stress and self-doubt. Replacing it with self-compassion is not about avoiding responsibility. It's about creating an inner environment where growth is possible. You can acknowledge your mistakes and still speak to yourself in a way that encourages progress rather than punishment. The words you use in your inner dialogue also shape your identity. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I'm bad with money," "I'm terrible at relationships," or I'm always unlucky. Your mind begins to accept those statements as facts. You will subconsciously look for evidence to support them, and you will ignore or dismiss evidence that contradicts them. Over time, those repeated thoughts become part of who you believe you are, and your feelings follow that belief. To break free from negative feelings, you have to break free from these limiting identity statements. Start telling yourself a different story. I'm learning to manage my money well. I'm improving in my relationships. I create my own opportunities. These new statements may feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is simply the old programming being challenged. If you persist, the new identity begins to take root. Visualization and affirmations can also play a powerful role in reshaping your inner dialogue. When you visualize yourself succeeding, overcoming challenges, or feeling confident, you're giving your mind a new script to follow. Similarly, repeating positive affirmations trains your subconscious to accept new beliefs, but the key is to back these mental exercises with emotion. The more you can feel the reality of the new thoughts while you think them, the faster they replace the old patterns. Your mind responds not just to the words you think, but to the emotional energy behind them. The connection between your inner dialogue and your external results is profound. Negative self-talk doesn't just create negative feelings, it also limits your actions. If you tell yourself you can't do something, you won't put in the effort to try, and that lack of effort guarantees the result you feared. On the other hand, positive and empowering inner dialogue encourages you to take bold action, which increases the likelihood of success, which in turn reinforces positive feelings. It becomes a cycle, and you get to decide whether it spirals downward into fear and stagnation or upward into growth and confidence. Mastering your inner dialogue takes practice, but the rewards are life-changing. The mind can be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally, and the difference lies in the way you speak to yourself. Every thought is a choice, and every choice shapes not only how you feel in the moment, but also the kind of future you are building for yourself. One of the greatest traps people fall into is waiting until they feel ready before they take action. They tell themselves they'll start when the timing is perfect, when they've gathered every bit of knowledge, when their confidence is at its peak, or when circumstances align in their favor. The problem with this thinking is that readiness is not a state you reach before you begin. It's something you develop through the process of doing. If you wait for the ideal moment, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life, because there will always be something that feels incomplete or uncertain. Life does not hand you perfect conditions on a silver platter. Instead, it presents opportunities disguised as challenges, and those opportunities can only be seized by those willing to step forward before they feel fully prepared. Action is the catalyst that transforms uncertainty into clarity, fear into courage, and doubt into momentum. The truth is, confidence is not the cause of action, it's the result of action. People often assume they must first feel confident before they can move forward. But confidence grows as you prove to yourself that you can handle what comes your way. You don't become a skilled speaker by reading about speaking. You become one by standing up in front of people, stumbling through your words, learning from the experience, and improving the next time. Every time you take action without waiting to feel ready, you build evidence that you are capable, and that evidence slowly rewires your self-image. The very thing you think you need before you start is often the thing you gain by starting. Acting before you feel ready also disrupts the grip of fear. Fear thrives in inaction. The longer you delay, the more your mind has time to invent scenarios of failure, rejection, or embarrassment. You begin to overthink and the fear grows larger than the reality. But when you take action, you deprive fear of the time it needs to grow. Even small steps forward shrink fear's hold on you, because movement creates new experiences, and new experiences replace imagined outcomes with real ones. You discover that the worst case scenario you were imagining rarely happens, and even if things don't go perfectly, you find ways to adapt and recover. That discovery builds resilience, and resilience makes it easier to take even bolder actions in the future. Another reason action is so powerful is that it creates momentum, and momentum has a compounding effect. When you start moving, even in a small way, you generate energy that propels you forward. It's like pushing a heavy boulder. At first, it's difficult to get it moving, but once it starts rolling, it takes far less effort to keep it going. The first step is always the hardest because it requires breaking through inertia. Once you've taken that step, the next one becomes easier, and the next easier still. This is why starting is often more important than starting perfectly. Perfection can wait. What matters first is motion. Many people avoid starting because they believe they need the full plan laid out before they act. They want certainty about every step of the journey, but certainty is a myth. No matter how much you plan, unexpected events will occur, and conditions will change. The most successful people are not those who had flawless plans from the beginning, but those who were willing to adapt as they moved forward. You can't steer a car that isn't moving, and you can't adjust your course if you never leave the starting line. Action gives you the feedback you need to refine your approach. Without action, all you have are guesses and theories. Taking action before you feel ready also opens doors you didn't even know existed. Opportunities rarely present themselves to those who are standing still. It is when you are in motion, engaging with people, experimenting, and trying new things, that you stumble upon connections, ideas, and possibilities that you could never have planned for. These are the hidden rewards of action, the ones that can only be discovered once you've stepped into the arena. Waiting until you feel ready not only delays your progress, but also denies you access to these unexpected gifts. It's important to recognize that starting before you're ready doesn't mean being reckless. It means having the courage to begin with what you have, knowing you can learn and adapt along the way. It's about accepting that imperfection is part of the process. No one ever executes flawlessly on their first attempt, and expecting yourself to do so is a form of self-sabotage. Instead, focus on progress, not perfection. Each action you take, no matter how small or imperfect, is a building block for the future you want. Over time, those small steps accumulate into significant achievements. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you take action despite feeling unprepared. You begin to see yourself as someone who is willing to face discomfort, to risk failure, and to grow from it. This identity shift is powerful because it changes how you approach every challenge that comes after. You stop being the person who waits for permission and start being the person who creates momentum. That kind of self-image feeds into a cycle of confidence and capability that continues to grow with each new experience. You'll never truly feel ready for the most important steps in your life, and that's exactly why you must take them anyway. Readiness is an illusion that keeps dreams locked in the realm of someday. Action is what pulls them into reality. The gap between where you are and where you want to be will not close through thinking, planning, or waiting. It will close through doing. Even if you stumble at first, those stumbles are progress, because they teach you more than endless preparation ever could. Acting before you feel ready is not about being fearless. It's about moving forward while you still feel the fear, trusting that the path will reveal itself with each step you take. Your life is a story, and every single day you are writing another page of it through the choices you make, the actions you take, and the beliefs you hold. The problem is that many people live as if someone else is holding the pen. They allow circumstances, past mistakes, or the opinions of others to dictate the direction of their story, forgetting that they are the author. When you realize that the pen has always been in your hand, everything changes. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission to chase your dreams. You stop blaming the past for where you are today. You begin to understand that no matter what has happened before, you can choose a new direction starting right now. Your story is not fixed, it is fluid, and you are the one shaping its plot. This shift in perspective is one of the most powerful transformations a person can experience because it replaces helplessness with responsibility, and responsibility brings freedom. Too often, people let the opening chapters of their life convince them that the ending is already decided. If they've faced hardship, failure, or disappointment, they assume the rest of the story will follow the same pattern. But your past is simply a prologue, not a life sentence. Every great story has twists and turns, moments when the hero faces obstacles that seem impossible to overcome, only to rise stronger and more determined than before. You are no different. The setbacks you faced are not the final chapters. They are the tension that makes your eventual triumph even more powerful. The moment you take ownership of your story, you begin to see challenges not as dead ends, but as plot devices that shape your character and prepare you for what's next. Writing your own story means consciously deciding what role you will play in it. Are you going to be the passive character who drifts along, letting the plot unfold without direction, or are you going to be the protagonist who drives the action forward? Many people unconsciously choose to be bystanders in their own life because it feels safer. They avoid taking risks, making bold decisions, or challenging the status quo, and as a result, their story remains predictable and uninspired. But a great story and a great life requires you to step into the unknown, to face uncertainty, and to take deliberate action toward your vision. Being the author means you are both the creator and the main character, and that level of responsibility can be intimidating. But it is also the only way to create a life worth living. When you write your own story, you stop being limited by the expectations that others have for you. People will always have opinions about what you should or shouldn't do, but their opinions are based on their own fears, limitations, and life experiences, not yours. If you let their voices be louder than your own, you end up living a story that belongs to them, not to you. Taking the pen back means choosing to listen to your inner voice above all else. It means setting your own standards for success, your own definitions of happiness, and your own vision for the future. You don't need to wait for validation from anyone else because you understand that this is your story, and you are the only one who has to live it. Every decision you make is like a sentence you write on the page. Small choices might seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they shape the entire direction of your story. Saying yes to opportunities, even small ones, can open new chapters filled with growth and possibility. Saying no to things that drain you or keep you stagnant closes the doors to unwanted subplots. The more intentional you become about these daily decisions, the more you guide your life toward the ending you want to create. You may not be able to control every event that happens in your story. Unexpected challenges and losses will still occur, but you can always control how you respond to them and what you choose to do next. One of the most liberating realizations is that you can edit your story at any time. Just because you've been telling yourself the same narrative for years doesn't mean you have to keep repeating it. You can decide right now to rewrite the way you see yourself and your life. If you've been playing the role of someone who always loses, you can begin writing yourself as someone who learns, grows, and ultimately wins. If you've been telling yourself that you're unlucky, you can change the script to one where you create your own opportunities. The pen is in your hand, and with it, you can change the tone, the direction, and the outcome of your life. Owning your role as the author also means taking full responsibility for the choices you've made so far. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that has gone wrong. It means recognizing your power to shape what happens next. As long as you believe your story is controlled by outside forces, you will remain at their mercy. But when you accept that you have the ability to choose your thoughts, your actions, and your responses, you reclaim your power. Even when life throws you a plot twist you didn't see coming, you get to decide whether it becomes a tragedy, a lesson, or the setup for a remarkable comeback. Writing your own story is not about predicting every detail of the future. It's about creating a clear vision of the kind of life you want, and then making choices that align with that vision every single day. It's about being intentional with your time, your energy, and your focus, and refusing to let fear, doubt, or other people's opinions steer you off course. The more you live in alignment with the story you want to tell, the more it becomes your reality. Eventually, you'll look back at the chapters you've written and see a story filled with courage, growth, and purpose. A story that is unmistakably yours.